My name is Ava Morgan. I am 36 years old. And if there is one thing that strikes me as a cruel joke of fate, it is that I, the only successful, independent, untroubled one, have been the one who has been left out of the family circle for so many years. I was born and raised in Evanston, a quiet suburb north of Chicago. My family seemed perfect. A father, James Morgan, who built Morgan Heritage Press from a small printing shop into the leading printing company in the Midwest. A mother, Margaret, who was a communicator and always knew how to make people feel important. And 3 children, me, my younger brother Eli, and my youngest Chloe. Sounds like a Hallmark commercial, right? Wrong. Very wrong. The truth is, Eli and I grew up as 2 children born by the book. Planned, expected, responsible. Chloe was a surprise. My parents joked that she was a late miracle, but in reality, Chloe was an accident. And in that accident, my mother found an opportunity. A living doll. A treasure to place on a pedestal and protect at all costs. When I was 9 and Eli was 7, Chloe was born. I remember clearly the day my mother brought her home. Her face was beaming as if she had won the lottery. Eli and I were told to be gentle, not to make loud noises, not to upset my mother because the baby needs love. I understood right then. Eli and I were no longer the center. Chloe grew up as if the world revolved around her, because in my mother's eyes, it did. Every time Chloe cried, I was scolded for not being tactful enough to keep her happy. Every time Chloe got mad, my mother frowned, turned to me, and said, "What do you know, Ava?" I was a good student. I went to college early. I never let my parents worry about my grades, never stayed out all night, never dated anyone my mother didn't approve of. But all of that seemed invisible. Chloe, on the other hand, Chloe never kept her word, never took more than 3 months off a course, never took responsibility for any of her mistakes. And every time she messed up, my mom always had an excuse. When Chloe broke my expensive contact lenses, my mother said, "She was just curious, don't be upset with her." When Chloe spilled red wine on the presentation I had been preparing for a week, my mother said, "You are still young. You can't be so angry with children." But the saddest thing is that I used to believe that if I tried hard enough, my mother would see me. If I was better, more successful, more obedient, then she would look at me the way she looked at Chloe. I was wrong. When I went to college, I majored in finance. My dad said it was a great career. I didn't like it, but I wanted to make my parents proud. I studied hard, graduated with an MBA, worked in New York for a few years, and was hired as CFO at a medical group in Chicago. I bought my first apartment when I was 28. The day I signed the contract to buy the house, I called my mother to brag. I still remember every word she said. "Oh, really? Chloe is thinking about going into interior design. She has great taste. She might even start her own company before you." I was silent. My heart was empty. Chloe was only 18 at the time. She had never studied or worked. But in her mother's eyes, she had always been someone who could do anything, even though she had never proven anything. Eli was the only one who understood me. We didn't need many words. One time, I was crying in my room after my mother scolded me for not coming home for dinner on time. Eli handed me a soda and said, "Are you okay?" "Mom talks too much." "I think you're great." I kept that sentence in my heart for nearly 20 years. My father, the only man who hadn't been blinded by Chloe, kept the household relatively level. He was strict, but fair. And while he indulged Chloe, he wasn't blind. "You're raising an arrogant monster," he once told my mother to her face. I think, if he were alive, things would be different. But he passed away when I was 28. And then my world fell apart. My mother gradually became unreasonable. Chloe went from a stubborn child to a self-centered and toxic woman. Eli and I gradually drifted away from them, not because we hated our mother and sister, but because if we didn't create distance, we wouldn't survive. Perhaps I only truly began to live when I learned to stop trying to be loved by my mother. Today, as I tell it, I am no longer the girl who longed for her mother's approval. I am Ava Morgan, who has learned to choose herself over her family. But that path wasn't easy. And what happened next, the calls, the blame, the humiliation, was something I never thought a mother could do to her daughter. And I'll tell you about it, bit by bit. I know some families where the youngest child is a little more spoiled, but Chloe isn't just spoiled, she's worshipped. Ever since she was a child, Chloe has always believed she was special, not because of any achievements she had, but simply because of her family. No, to be more precise, my mother kept telling me that. Chloe believed she was the most beautiful, the smartest, the most stylish, the most artistically intuitive, and of course, deserved everything that others have to work hard to achieve. Eli and I lived through decades of that toxic mentality under the same roof. When Chloe was 16, she said at dinner, "If I didn't work myself to the point of getting older every day, I probably wouldn't be so single." That sentence made me choke. At that time, my mother not only did not remind me, but also laughed and said, "She was just joking. Ava, you really need to learn to relax." As for Eli, he almost jumped up from the table, but I stopped him. I was used to it. In fact, ever since Chloe started talking, she had been taught that every word spoken was the truth of a goddess. Chloe didn't go to university. She tried a few short courses in creative aesthetics and dropped out. Then she tried applied stylistics in fashion design, then painting, candle making, vlogging, podcasting. None of them lasted longer than 3 months. And my mother always said, "She's in the process of finding herself." There are people like Chloe who need time to shine. Shine? How does Chloe shine? Through photos posted on Instagram with empty captions, attached with donation links to support young artists, or through wedding invitation designs that even customers refuse to accept. Oh, right. Chloe once designed a poster for a travel company, but that project only lasted 4 hours before it was taken down. My mom lobbied her acquaintances to order it, and then they called me to complain that Chloe's work looked like it was drawn in PowerPoint from 2002. But all suggestions were blocked by Mother with a magic spell. Every genius needs time. She's just getting started. A few years ago, Eli started teaching full-time at a community high school. He's not rich, but he support myself, pay off my student loans, and even send a portion of my salary to my mom every month. Chloe has never done anything like that. But one Thanksgiving, when I mentioned that Eli was developing an online learning program, my mom glanced over and said, almost unconsciously, "Chloe is also thinking about opening a design studio. Maybe she will be the boss before Eli." I burst out laughing right there at the dinner table. I laughed so hard I couldn't speak. But I can't always laugh. There is one memory that I still remember. I was 32 years old that year and had just received the Financial Leader Under 40 Award from the National CFO Association. I came home with the glass trophy in my hand, and my mother glanced at it and said, "Well, that's nice. But your sister just sent me a new painting. It's really nice. I'm thinking of framing it and hanging it in the living room." That's when I understood. I can achieve all the titles, have all the degrees, earn all the money, but I'm never as important as a Chloe doodle. Many people told me to have a frank talk with my mother. But how many times have I said it? I once asked my mother, "Why do you think you and Eli don't want to come home for the holidays anymore?" Mother replied with a reproachful look, "Because you are selfish, thinking that once you are successful, you don't need family anymore." Family? Is home where my sister calls me a robot in a suit and my mother tells me I'm too sensitive if I get offended? Family is where Eli was rumored to have a secret crush on a classmate by Chloe just because she dared to criticize his music taste? Is family a place where all my efforts are thrown aside just because I'm not the final princess? The older I get, the more I understand that not every family is worth keeping. There are things that, if you keep holding on to, will only make you wither. Chloe is a selfish person, but I don't blame her as much as I blame my mother. Because Chloe is the result of a nearly 3-decade process of blind pampering. I used to think, if one day Chloe falls into trouble, she will learn to grow up. But I was too naive. The truth is, Chloe never needed to grow up. Because my mother is standing behind. It all started one early spring morning when I got a call from Eli. His voice was weak, mixed with the sound of ambulance sirens. Ava, don't panic. I just slipped while carrying equipment up to the 3rd floor. I think I broke my ankle. I stood up from my desk, my heart pounding in my chest. It wasn't the first time Eli had tried to do things on his own. He'd always been independent, even when things got tough. But this time, I knew I couldn't stay out. I took 3 days off, flew to Indianapolis, where Eli lived, and built the first online learning platform specifically for rural high school students. When I got to the hospital, Eli was lying in bed with his ankle in a cast, swollen and purple like an eggplant. He still tried to joke, "At least there is a chance to test the effectiveness of the insurance." We laugh, but the truth is not funny at all. Eli's insurance only covered basic hospital bills, but the medications, rehabilitation equipment, and hiring a home caregiver for the first 3 weeks were all out of the scope. Each cost was in the thousands, and Eli had just quit teaching to focus on his startup, which had not yet attracted investors or had a steady cash flow. I remember the day he called me, confused. "Sister, I still have savings. You don't need to worry about me." I interrupted. "Shut up and let me do what I have to do." I paid the entire bill, almost $14,000, including in-home physical therapy, a special shower chair, a mobility device, and 2 weeks of part-time nursing. He needed to recover, and I could afford it. That was it. I didn't post anything publicly, but a few days later, a photo of Eli, smiling with his leg in a cast, appeared on his friend's Facebook page. The caption read, "Thank you, Ava Morgan, for always being the best sister." And so, Chloe found out. I should have guessed. But I didn't think she would call straight into my meeting, to open with a sentence as if I were her personal bank. "Sis, I just saw a penthouse in River North. City view, rooftop terrace, huge living room. Mom says I should move out since I'm 27. How about you help me pay for the other half?" I almost froze, not because of the money, but because attitude. "Chloe, I just helped Eli pay for his hospital bills since he can't walk on his own. Are you comparing that to a luxury apartment for selfies?" Chloe laughed as if I had just told a joke. "Eli isn't dead. If you can help him, why can't you help me? I'm your sister too. Or do you only love your brother because he's not as handsome?" I was speechless. This wasn't the first time Chloe had mentioned looks as an advantage, as a measure of human worth. But this time, it made me sick. "No," I said, trying to keep my cool, "because I'm the only one in the family who never takes responsibility for my life. I don't need a penthouse. I need a job." I hung up right after that. 3 minutes later, the phone rang. Chloe called back 5 times. I didn't answer. Then came a string of messages. Weeping, pleading, cursing. "What is the point of living if not helping your brother? Mom said you were cold. Now I believe it. Without you, I would have nothing. My mother raised me and educated me, and now you turn your back? Ungrateful." I hung up. I put the phone face down on the table, but my heart felt like it was being torn in two. I know this isn't over yet. And just as I expected that night, Mom called. The longest call of my life. Not to ask how Eli was, but to question why I rejected my brother in his time of need. "You helped Eli. You can't be biased like that," my mother said over the phone, her voice like someone was strangling her. I helped Eli because he needed help, and because Eli always respected me, not because he called to ask for money as a right. Mom was silent for a few seconds. Then she sighed, steadily, as if I had made her sick. Remember, if it weren't for your mother's kind upbringing, you wouldn't be here today. I laughed dryly. You're right, Mom, but you didn't teach me kindness. You taught me to endure. And that's when I hung up. I hung up with his biological mother. I thought I would feel guilty, but I didn't. I felt peaceful. Something inside me is broken, and I don't want to fix it anymore. I texted Eli. I just broke up with Chloe and Mom. If you want to do that, I support it. If not, I understand. Eli called back almost immediately. You did it first. I'll follow you. I laughed. After all these years, we finally learned how to protect ourselves. But what I didn't know then was that the real storm was just beginning. I still remember clearly every vibration of the phone that night. The ringing sounds were like a knife blade hitting the side of a glass cup, cold and sharp. I had just arrived home, not even taking off my shoes. The name that always confused me appeared on the screen, M.O.M. I took a deep breath, sat down in the armchair near the window, and picked up the phone. Ava, I need to talk to you. My mother's voice was not cold, not harsh, but very gentle. The gentleness of a storm before it engulfs the entire city. Yes, Mom, go ahead, I replied, my voice calmer than I thought I could. I heard you refused to help Chloe buy the apartment. Oh, I see. Chloe called for help. Yes, because I don't see any reason to pay for an adult with no job, no goals, to live in a penthouse in the middle of Chicago. I thought my mother would say I was too rational or lacking compassion, but she went straight to the point that made me freeze. I know you helped Eli. Each word screeched through the phone like fingernails scratching a wall. Because Eli is hurt. He needs help, I replied. Chloe needs help too. She wants to live a decent life, not depend on others, not be a burden to her mother. But she has no one but you. I laughed dryly. No one? Mom was always there for him. While you, the one who helped me pay off my debts 3 times, the one who paid for me to keep the house after Dad died, can never be called the child who needs me. My mother was silent. This time, it was the silence of someone about to drop a bomb. You always thought you were so good, so superior, that you had the right to deny your blood. But without your mother, without someone to serve you, cook for you, teach you, where would you be now, Ava? I swallowed down the lump in my throat. Where are you? Here. In the apartment you bought yourself, with the money you earned, without asking your mother for a cent. While Chloe is demanding to live in a penthouse with my money. And you think that's fair? Don't talk to me like that, Ava. I'm tired. If you keep this up, I'll cut off contact. I laughed, a bitter laugh. We broke it off 8 years ago, Mom. We only pretended to be involved out of politeness. If you want to stop pretending today, I'm ready. She roared. Ava, you never thank anyone. Who do you owe your life to? Mom? I stood up and went straight to the balcony so as not to break anything in the house. I survived because I learned to protect myself from you. From the times you made me feel like I was never good enough, from the times you turned a blind eye while Chloe humiliated me over and over again. She choked for a moment. I knew she didn't think I would go that far. You are so ungrateful. Your father would be so disappointed if he were still alive to hear these words. I turned back, looked at my reflection in the glass door, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I had nothing to fear anymore. If Dad were alive, he would understand that I have suffered enough. I stopped and looked up at the sky. The April night wind blew across my neck like a cold hug. But I continued. You want to cut ties? Fine. Because in your eyes, there has only been one child named Chloe for a long time. So you don't need to pretend anymore. I heard a heavy breathing on the other end of the line. Then a shout. "You're not invited to the house anymore. You're not allowed to go to Chloe's wedding. You're not allowed to." "Good. Because I won't invite you to my wedding either. Maybe save room for someone who truly loves you." She was silent. I knew she was stunned. Then she shouted, "Who to marry? Who are you going to marry?" I didn't answer. I ended the call, and this time I block mom, block your mother. Sounds cruel, right? But for me, it was a way of surviving, a way of reclaiming the last bit of air I was allowed to breathe. Nathaniel, my fiancé, came home that night to find me curled up on the sofa. He didn't ask many questions. He just sat down next to me and held my hand tightly. "You don't have to say anything," he whispered. I just whispered one sentence. "I'm done, this time for real." And I remember that feeling forever. The relief of knowing you don't owe anyone anything. I won't lie and say I'm not in pain, but it's better to be hurt once than to live a lifetime with a wound that never heals. Chloe was wrong. My mother was wrong. And I, the one who was considered cold-blooded, ended up loving too much to the point of exhaustion. Now I don't love the wrong way anymore. Now I choose to love myself. A strange thing happens when you block your mother and sister's numbers. You start sleeping better. The night after that last call, I fell asleep within 10 minutes of lying in bed. Not because I wasn't in pain anymore, but because I was no more pretending. No more cold, Merry Christmas texts. No more dinner invitations that always felt like a trial. No more guilt for not calling, even if it was only to hear her ask about Chloe. But my peace did not last long. The next morning, I opened my phone and saw 14 messages from relatives whose names I didn't even save. Some of my father's relatives, some of my mother's old friends. They sent a link to Chloe's social media post. The caption was short, but extremely vicious. "When your sister refuses to help you move out of a toxic environment because she thinks you don't deserve to live on your own, but she's willing to spend tens of thousands of dollars to help someone else, just because they're more to your taste." Below the post is a picture of Chloe leaning her head on my mother's shoulder, the two of them hugging each other in a dark room. The sub-caption reads, "Sometimes family is the only people left when everyone else has turned their backs." I sighed, but wasn't surprised. Chloe has always had a knack for playing the victim. She knows how to write a pain she has never experienced, and then turn it into a story that makes people feel sorry for her, just like how a good actor can cry on demand. Chloe can write a tear-jerking status with just a few minutes of pretending to be sorry. Comments under the explosive article, "Your sister is so cruel. I was also abandoned by my brother like that. Keep up the good work, Chloe. You are the light in the family. Don't let anyone overshadow you." I didn't answer, didn't speak, didn't explain. I have lived my whole life in the trap of having to save face for the family. But now I know. Silence is also a form of freedom. A few days later, during a partner meeting, I received a text message from Eli. "Do you have a few minutes? Uncle Robert wants to call." My heart jumped. Robert, my father's younger brother, who ran Morgan Heritage Press, never called me during work hours unless it was really serious. "I will withdraw from the meeting and call back." Uncle Robert spoke quickly and briefly, but each word was like a knife. "Ava, I need to tell you something important. Your mother is preparing to transfer some of her shares to Chloe. But it's not just a transfer." I held my breath. She asked for an update to the shareholder charter, so Chloe would have voting rights on the board. I stood there, my ears ringing, as if I had been doused with boiling water. It took me a few seconds to speak. "Chloe, joining your dad's company?" Uncle Robert breathed out softly. "I know. I can see how dangerous it is. Chloe has no financial background, no understanding of printing, no understanding of any operating systems. But Margaret is putting pressure on." I was speechless. That company was my father's life's work, a business he built from scratch, knocking on the doors of small printing houses, sleeping on the warehouse floor to save money. And now, that company is about to fall into the hands of someone who can't design a decent catalog. Uncle Robert continued, I don't want to confront your mother directly, but if you and Eli, as James's biological children, speak up, maybe she'll listen. I closed my eyes, and a flood of memories flooded my mind. My dad's calloused hands, as he took me on my first tour of the printing house, his smile when I finished my MBA, the look he gave Eli at our last birthday party. I opened my eyes and said firmly, I will come. Thank you, Ava, my uncle said, his voice softening. I know your father would be proud of you. That night, I met Eli. We sat in silence in the car for more than 10 minutes before someone spoke. I thought after that last call we wouldn't have to go back to that house, Eli said. I looked straight ahead. You're right, but this time, it's not for Mom, it's for Dad. Eli nodded. For Dad. The next day we went back to the house where we grew up, a house that was now filled with nothing but cracks in our hearts. Chloe still lived there, and I knew she wouldn't pass up this chance to prove herself a winner. And I knew, if I didn't act now, everything my dad left behind would be erased by Chloe Morgan's hands covered in highlighter and acrylic nails. The bronze iron gate still creaked as it did the last time I walked through it. That was 3 years ago, at a family celebration of my great-grandmother's birthday, where Chloe and I pretended to smile at each other for exactly 22 seconds before she fired back at me with a line about successful women who are still single. Today, I did not come to pretend. Eli parked the car on the grass. We were silent for a long time. I put on my sunglasses, but my eyes were still red. Not from crying, but from anger that made my blood pressure boil. Ready? Eli asked. I took a deep breath. Number, but let's go. Mom opened the door, her face heavily made up, her expensive silk dress, and her eyes that I had once mistaken for aristocratic coldness. Now I knew it was sugar-coated contempt. Oh, you two still remember the way home? She said, her voice teasing. Eli didn't answer. I walked straight in without waiting for an invitation. And as expected, Chloe was already sitting in the living room. Burgundy bodycon dress, wavy hair, shiny nails. On the table was a laptop with the shareholders' charter that Uncle Robert had mentioned open. What are you doing here? You blocked me? Chloe spoke first, smirking as if she were the real CEO. I sat down on the opposite chair, crossed my legs, took off my sunglasses, and looked straight into my mother's eyes. I came to stop you from destroying Dad's company. The atmosphere instantly froze. Chloe laughed. Oh, why so serious? I just want to have a say in the running of the place I also have the right to inherit. Inheritance is not decision-making, Eli said, his voice lower than usual, and I've never proven myself capable of interfering in anything other than posting stories myself. Chloe rolled her eyes. You two are really jealous. You've tried your whole life but still can't gain my mother's trust like me. My mother raised her hand. Enough. I turned to her. Mom, I just want to ask you one question. Do you remember your promise to Dad? Her eyes wavered slightly. A thin crack appeared in the cold shell. Before Dad died, he made it clear, don't let the kids fight over the company. Let Robert run it. He knows it better than anyone. I remember Mom nodding. She agreed. Things have changed, Mom replied, her voice breaking. You and Eli don't care about the family anymore. Chloe stays, takes care of Mom, takes care of everything. I burst out laughing, a dry horse laugh like burnt paper. Chloe stays to spend her mother's money. She doesn't take care of anyone. And if she's going to pay for staying home with power in the company, then she's turning her father's life's work into a toy. Chloe sat up. Shut up. You have no right to talk about Dad like you know him better than me. Don't you understand, Dad? I turned around, emphasizing each word. You're the only person he's never asked for a penny from. The one he invited to the shareholder meeting when you were only 19. The one he trusted not to ruin everything because of empty pride. Mother clasped her hands in her lap. Ava, you are insulting your sister. You are making me feel ashamed for giving birth to you. Eli jumped up, his eyes blazing. Number, you are humiliating us as your children. No one said anything for the next 10 seconds, just the sound of the air conditioner and my pounding heart. Chloe turned to her mother and whispered something. Then she looked at me, smiling triumphantly. If you hate that company so much, why do you care who runs it? Or, you just can't stand the thought of me being chosen? I care, I replied. Because I have a brain, Chloe. You're the only one who thinks you can run a business with Instagram filters. Mother stood up. Her eyes were like mirrors that reflected nothing but themselves. Go home. I will think about it. But right now, I don't want anything to do with you two anymore. You have made me feel betrayed. I stood up and looked at her one last time. No. You betrayed Dad. And if you had any respect for him, you would stop. We left that house without another word. When he got to the car, Eli sighed. I was hoping, just once, Mom would listen to us. I didn't answer. I just looked in the rearview mirror. The house behind me was shrinking, like my past, like all the things I've tried to preserve, and now have to learn to let go. Strangely enough, after arguing until my throat was sore, I didn't feel angry, just empty. It was as if the last breath had been taken from my chest, and all that was left was something smoldering, half burnt, half abandoned. Eli and I didn't say a word during the drive from Evanston back to Chicago. He drove, and I sat next to him, eyes glued to the window, clutching the small wooden bracelet, the only thing I had left of my father. It was a gift he gave me when I was 18. He didn't say anything when he gave it to me, just said, "This is ebony from Ghana. They say it calms the mind. You will need it later." I just laughed at that time. A young girl just entering university, full of ambition and will, thought that she didn't need calm, but speed. Now I understand. Peace of mind is one thing, luxury when you're trying to stop your entire family from destroying your father's legacy, all because of someone who never understood its value. That night, I dreamed of my father. He sat at an old walnut desk, the pale yellow light casting shadows on the paper. I stood beside him, watching him write something in his notebook. He looked up, smiled, and said, "They won't understand, but you have to keep your promise." I woke up, my heart beating like a drum. That dream wasn't the first time I had seen it. It came back, just when I was starting to doubt my decision, when I was tired and frustrated with having to be the one standing up, while others were allowed to sit and cry for attention. But this time, I knew I had to go on, even if I was alone. 3 days later, Uncle Robert called. Nothing has been decided yet, but Margaret. She's hesitating. Chloe's getting more and more pushy. "How do you squeeze Chloe?" I asked. It said if it wasn't given the power, it would sell the shares its mother intended to transfer to anyone who wanted to buy. I almost dropped the phone. But Mother has the right to forbid that by the rules. Only if you make a decision in time. I closed my eyes. On one side was my uncle's mind, the manager of the company with experience and principles. On the other side was my mother, being manipulated by Chloe with sweet, poisonous emotions, the kind of emotions that only biased mothers fail to realize are dangerous. Eli came quietly to my side as I hung up. "Is the situation worse?" I nodded. "Chloe is threatening to sell the shares her mother is about to transfer to her." "Sell to who?" Eli frowned. I didn't say anything. Because I knew. Chloe didn't care who she was sold to, as long as that person had money and praised her enough. That night, I did something I never thought I would do. I went to the cemetery. My father's grave is located on a tall, grassy hill north of the city. The simple granite tombstone, deeply engraved, James Morgan, 1956 to 2014. Build quietly, protect loudly. I put my hand on the cold stone. I tried, Dad. Me and Eli both tried, but Mom wouldn't listen. Chloe wouldn't listen, and I was so tired. I sat down, my hand still on the grave as if to transmit warmth. A light breeze blew by, carrying the scent of young grass and damp earth. Dad used to say that the company is not for sharing. Dad taught me that a family business is only sustainable when people understand its true value, not just use it as a tool to prove its existence. I swallowed hard. I don't need you to realize your mistake. I just need you to know. I kept my word. The next morning, Eli sent me a photo. It was a handwritten letter. On it was a familiar handwriting. Of Father to Ava and Eli. If I'm not here, remember, the company is my lifeblood, but you are my heart. If you can't protect both, then protect what's right. Do what you believe is right, and don't let anyone make you feel guilty about it. Dad. Eli found the letter in an old book while cleaning out his closet, and he kept it, waiting for the right moment. I read the letter over and over again, until my tears blurred the ink. I was ready to face being disowned, being smeared, being called ungrateful. Because I know the only respect you deserve is from yourself. 2 weeks after the confrontation at my mother's house, I received a text message from Uncle Robert. Margaret agreed not to give Chloe her voting rights. The management rights remain the same. We keep the company. I read the news 3 times, tears welling up without me realizing it. I did it, I texted back. Thanks. On behalf of my dad. Uncle Robert answered with a simple sentence. No, Ava. Your dad would be proud of you. That evening I sat alone on the balcony, holding a glass of white wine. The wind was gentle, the sky was cloudless, and the city of Chicago below shimmered like a universe within reach. I closed my eyes and thought of my dad, to Eli, even Mom, and then Chloe. I imagine her face when she hears that her mother is going to die, or not to let her take power in the company. I didn't have to wait long to know her real reaction. 3 days later, Mom called Eli, not to explain, not to apologize, but to give ultimatum. Eli, if you decide to choose Uncle Robert over your mother and Chloe, then I will no longer consider you my children. Eli texted me a recording. In it, Mom says things like, I raised you with all my heart, and you stabbed me in the back, just because you didn't want the youngest to have a chance. Ava is selfish and self-centered. She only helps Eli because she knows he will listen to her. I hope you two do well, because from now on, don't ever call me again. I don't cry. I'm not angry. I just sat there, feeling a space open up inside me. Not emptiness, but escape. It was as if I was stepping out of a stuffy room for the first time, where I had been locked up for 36 years. Chloe, of course, didn't stop there. She posted a series of Instagram stories, lamenting a family decision taken away from her by people who don't believe in young women. In one story she wrote, I used to think family was the safest place, but it turned out it was the place that crushed my dreams the fastest. Below is a picture of her hugging her mother, both dressed in black, eyes red, as if mourning for a lost loyalty. I didn't react. I didn't say anything. But what surprised me was silence from the rest. My aunts, uncles, and relatives who used to take sides have all gone silent. No one has supported Chloe's post. No one has shared it. No one has called to blame me like they used to. Maybe they saw the real face. Or, more simply, they choose silence, like the way people move out of a burning house without taking their photos with them. A week later, I received a letter from Uncle Robert, the official announcement from the board. The management rights were still in place. Chloe was only allowed to transfer a portion of the shares in Dow, meaning she will have income from dividends, but no voting, no participation in management. That is the final compromise. But my mother agreed, perhaps because she also understood that if she went too far, she would lose her reputation in the company. I folded the letter, and placed it next to my father's diary. A journey ends. Not as good as winning, but equal prevention. That weekend, I went to the cemetery again. This time, I didn't say much. I just placed a printed copy of the board's decision on my father's grave, then whispered, "I kept my word. The rest is up to you." I stood up and turned to leave. No looking back. I never dreamed of a fairy tale wedding. No fluttering dresses, no fireworks, no sparkling carriages. I just wanted peaceful. And it was true. Nate and I got married on a balmy early fall day on Lake Michigan. The breeze was gentle. The sky was blue. The people I loved sat under the white canopy, holding hands, eyes filled with love. No one cried. No one screamed. No one insulted anyone for choosing the wrong color flower. And most especially, without my mother, without Chloe. The 2 empty seats in the front row were left there, not because I regretted it, but because I wanted to be alone. Look at it and know, I've made my choice. The invitations went out a month ago. I didn't send them to my mom. I didn't send them to Chloe. No message, no notice, no follow-up. I don't cut them out of my life. I just don't invite them into your new world. And I thought that was it. But it wasn't. Chloe still knows. A week before the wedding, I received a text message from my cousin, Jacob. "Chloe just called my wife, begging us not to go to your wedding, saying you treated your mother and family badly, setting a trap to take all the inheritance." I laughed. "So will you listen?" I texted back. "Number. Because you know who she is, and I never set anyone up, just trying to keep what is mine." I sank into my chair. My throat tightened. Not because of anger, but because moving. Finally, after years of being manipulated, misunderstood, and played the villain in my own story, I have someone see me clearly. On the wedding day, I stepped out of the dressing room in a pure white silk wedding dress with a deep V-neck, not flashy but proud. My hair was tied up high, and I pinned it with an old hairpin, a gift from my grandmother before she passed away. I don't cry, I don't shake, just calmly walking on the grass, looking towards Nate, who was waiting for me. The first man who made me feel I don't have to fight to be loved. After the wedding, I received a text message from an old friend who was not invited but found out from social media. My cousin works at the makeup salon where Chloe is. I heard that my mom and sister knew they weren't invited, so they posted a story this morning saying they were doing charity work and didn't care about any formal wedding. I opened my phone. Sure enough, Chloe posted a photo of my mom in a wheelchair, holding a bouquet of flowers. Caption: "Instead of attending a party with people who don't consider me related by blood, I choose to be with people who are. Family is not an invitation. It's a connection between hearts." Below the post are countless comments. "My mother is a strong person. Family is the most important thing. Getting married without a mother is a failure. I find Ava cruel." I handed the phone to Nate. He read it and shrugged. "Who needs to connect with the heart if that heart is full of daggers?" I laughed. Then I hung up the phone. Don't read another word. The next day, I was told that Chloe had called several relatives and berated them for daring to come to my wedding. An elderly aunt replied bluntly, "My dear, maybe you can't act this time." I don't know what Chloe looked like at that moment, but I know for sure things were spiraling out of her control, and I don't have to do anything. A week later, I stumbled upon information that I shouldn't have cared about, but made me laugh out loud. My mother sublet the old house and move in, the penthouse that Chloe had desired so much that she forced me to buy it. Chloe couldn't afford to rent the apartment, of course, but her mother withdrew some of her dividends to move in, to make it easier to take care of her youngest daughter. Now they live together. Chloe takes care of her mother by posting photos of mother and daughter applying face masks, weekend mornings together, yoga together, My mother now goes online to call Chloe, my beloved daughter, a gift from God. I read without pain anymore. Just see, funny. If they are not human, then they are two potential actors for a black comedy. That evening, I sat with Eli. He drank beer, I drank tea. We looked out at the glittering city, its lights reflecting through the glass windows. Do you think, will they change? Eli asked. I shook my head. Number, but we change. And that is enough. I thought my release would come like a thunderclap, decisive, epic, exhilarating. But it turned out, it came softer than an autumn wind. After our wedding, Nate and I spent 2 weeks in Napa Valley. Every morning, I woke up next to the man I loved, in a sunny wood-paneled room with birds chirping outside the window. No phone ringing because of family drama. No text from family forcing me to let it go this time, Ava. There was no sign of Chloe in any of the conversations. Just me, as I am, undefended, unjudged. One evening, as we sat together under the grape arbor, I asked Nate, I think, if I see Mom and Chloe again in the future, what should I do? He looked at me, put down his glass, and replied with a sentence I will never forget. You don't have to do anything. Forgiveness isn't an obligation, it's a choice. And not forgiving doesn't make you a bad person, as long as you're true to yourself. I looked at him for a long time. And for the first time in my life, I saw, I have nothing to prove. No need to pretend to be loved by your mother. There is no need to argue to convince anyone that you are not heartless. There is no need to be confrontational to be called a good guy. I just need to live. Eli called me after the break. His voice was light and cheerful. The first page of the online learning platform is funded. We received a $120,000 grant from an educational organization. We're starting, sis, I screamed into the phone, then burst into tears. Not out of emotion, but out of happiness. No one deserves success more than Eli. A person so kind that he is willing to stand back his whole life just so that others don't feel hurt. And now, he is stepping forward, no apologies, no shyness. One afternoon, while I was sorting through old books in the house, I found a box of old cards and photos from my childhood. In it was a picture of me sitting on my father's lap, reading to me. I was about 6 years old, my hair tied in pigtails, my eyes glued to the page. Behind the photo is a line of text in fountain pen. Every child deserves to believe that he or she matters. I looked at the words for a long time, and I cried. Not because of pain, but because of knowing. I became the woman the little girl in the picture needed. I still hear that Chloe and my mother continue to live together in the penthouse. I occasionally see pictures of them scrolling through social media, Chloe hosting creative workshops, my mother as guest of honor, both of them smiling brightly under the golden light of carefully edited photos. I didn't click to see. No need to see. I don't resent it. I don't hate it. I just don't care anymore. And that, to me, is the sweetest victory. That winter, I wrote in my diary, there are families where we are born, but not where we belong. And there are loves that come late, not because they have forgotten us, but because they are waiting for us to be ready to receive them. I used to think happiness was a reward after suffering. Now I know, happiness is a statement, a choice, a door that only you can open. And if you ask me, who has been called cold, ungrateful, an emotionless money-making machine, how I got revenge on my mother and sister, I will smile and reply, I do not take revenge. I leave and live a life where they no longer have a seat.